everyone.
Hello.
Welcome. Thank you for tuning in yet again to episode number 3. We're so excited to be before you today to talk about the 7-year wait.
Yeah.
So last week we shared a little bit about our story, our individual stories.
Our history, where we come from.
And how we met. And so today we're going to talk about the 7-year wait. And
what's the 7-year wait for people who don't know us or,
So the 7-year wait is the number of years that Dontae pursued me. And
don't make it seem like that. Like it was like 7 years of processing.
Okay, yeah.
In order for us to come together as one.
Okay, yeah. What he said. 7 years of processing. Our 7-year journey, up until getting married, pretty much, right?
Engaged. I think engaged until we got engaged.
No, until we got married, because we got engaged in 2013. We got married in 2014.
Okay.
So that's 7 years. So pretty much, Dontae is going to share his side of what that journey was like for him. What his 7 years was like, and next week I will share my 7 years. Yeah.
All right. So I hope people don't tune out because it's just me talking this time. But
don't fall asleep now, y'all. Don't fall asleep.
All right. So on a few things. So last time when I shared my history, I stopped at the point where I had asked God, like, what is this? What is this this connection that we have, or this relationship that I have with my wife, who wasn't my wife at the time, of course. And so the first thing so about a year into our friendship, when we were growing close, just like any other, man and woman, as you grow close in a relationship and you guys hang out more, you spend time talking more, whatever the case may be, you start asking like, okay, maybe your feelings start coming up a bit, or how do the kids say it nowadays? Catching feelings. So I ended up, I think I was catching feelings, as they say. But no, what happened is, I could feel like there was this closeness, right? There was this exclusivity in our relationship, and we were just friends. And I hadn't known her a lot, but we really bonded over God, because that's really what drew us more, and that's all we really talked about was our relationship with God, our foundation, where we come from, things we've been through, in our walk. And so
I remember one of the first stories you told me was the pillars. You remember the pillars?
Oh, it's about the book?
No, it wasn't the book. Because I remember I was living in Stonebrook and I was sitting outside in my car, and you were talking about the pillars, like strength.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah. I had wrote a whole diagram up. I'll try to, maybe I can share that.
Sorry, I just interrupted your whole.
No, that was good, because I completely forgot about that.
Yeah.
But I mean, we were sharing things, and so and it was a little bit of a dynamic where I was, where she would ask questions in depth, and I would give answers based on my experience, and she would share things with me, enlighten me on things as well. And so we were like really learning about our relationship with God, together, and so basically that's what drew me more and more into a deeper relationship with her, because I had mentioned it before, and I'll bring this up in detail another time maybe, but I was engaged before, and at the time that broke off, and then the time we came to the point that I'm referring to now, I had asked God, I said, when I get married, I just want a woman that serves the Lord, like has a real relationship with the Lord, and truly desires to grow and knows where their purpose is, knows where they're going, like has a plan, knows what they're pursuing after in life. And so for me, that was really the only thing I'd ask for. I didn't have a big old list like that. I have preferences and things I like, but do not do that. Let me tell the story. Okay. So I have preferences like any other man, but I will say that the thing that I desired in my heart was a woman who loved the Lord. So anyways, so that's all I asked for. So going back to the point in the story I'm talking about. So I remember specifically one day, it was late at night, and I had this strong feeling concerning her, and I was like, what is this? Like, I'm not trying to say it's I've had strong feelings for her or I'm in love or anything like that, but I'm like, what is it? And so I remember specifically getting on my knees and praying, and like within a few minutes, the Lord said, "That is your wife." And literally after that, it wasn't even like an extended time or anything. After that, I got up and I went back to sleep. And so, sometime after that, a couple months after that, is when I started really feeling strongly towards her. And so I remember having a conversation, and I'll let her tell more from her side in that conversation. But I will give the short and sweet is I let her know that I was falling into a place of loving her, and I knew who she was in regards to being my wife. Now, I don't remember if I told her that I knew she was my wife. Did I? You can correct me because I don't remember saying that in the conversation. But did I?
And I don't in the beginning.
Yeah, I don't think I did. Okay. So, anyways, after that time frame, like we were still exclusive, and so some of the things that, like, for me, I've always been loyal, always been faithful. I was never like I didn't go from woman to woman. That's just not, that was never my thing. That was not my makeup. But
why?
Why that wasn't? Well, I think it's a combination of the fact that I always wanted a wife. I didn't want to do the whole let me date every chick that's around the way. I think part of it was my upbringing. Part of it was the simple fact that how I shared in the last video about my mother not being there, my father not being there, longing to have that type of relationship. I think that drove me, and that drove me in the sense of I don't want to go hop from woman to woman. I want to find a woman who's going to eventually be my wife, even from a younger age. And I think part of it too is the fact that even when I gave my life to the Lord, I realized that the meaninglessness in going from woman to woman, what's the point? That's a lot of the questions that I ask myself in a relationship. Like, what is the point of this? Like, I don't have time to try to just be here for fun. Like, I got stuff that I'm trying to accomplish, things that I'm trying to do. And so for me, every relationship that I either entered into or entertained had to have a greater goal attached to it, because that's how I live my life. And so anyways, for me, that kind of led me down the road of, that's the questions that I asked myself. And when we started becoming closer, the exclusivity that we had in our relationship and me knowing who God called her to be, I just started kind of shutting out the other voices and the other options that are around me. Because when a man knows something, when he knows what he wants, when he's clear about it, he's going to go after it, regardless of that. I mean, that's all he really needs in order for him to continue making the steps that he has. But if it's not clear, or if he's not clear, then there is no way that he will stay stable in his pursuit of whatever is in front of him. And so for me, I knew what I wanted.
Unstable.
Unstable in all his ways. Mm-hmm. So I knew what I wanted. I knew where I was supposed to go. God gave me the confirmation. It was like, all right, let's make this happen. And so I think that right there, that reality was both, I want to say, a gift and a curse. It was a gift in the fact that I didn't have to go pursue other options because I knew the word that the Lord gave me. But there was also a curse in the sense that the patience that the Lord and maturity of the Lord need to kind of really work in me, both naturally and spiritually, was difficult. Like, a lot of people that know this story and have seen us in that journey, in that time frame, close friends, family, whatever, and even people that see it from afar be like, I don't understand why, I don't know how you waited 7 years, but also
they're like, bruh, I would have been out.
Right. Yeah, some of them were. And so for me, it was like, people don't realize that there was many times where I was like, I do not understand why I have to stick around. I don't understand why I have to be here. I don't understand why I have to wait for this. I don't understand why I have to go through this. It doesn't make any sense. Because there was many times where I'm done. And the Lord would literally speak to me, bring prophetic words to me, bring me dreams that will reaffirm the what I didn't want to do, which was continue to pursue her, even continue to be in her life in the capacity that he wanted me to. And so, and part of me in my growth was the development of my patience. And the development of my patience was in the sense of, the Lord was like, I need you to let me develop your life and not try to force it. And so a lot of times what happens in life is we're go-getters, or we're ambitious about the things he puts before us, and we don't realize that everything happens in his time and in his season. Now, of course, I'm contrasting that against procrastination and laziness and things that we all kind of deal with at some point or time. But I'm also given the reality of is the Lord is always in control. And so when we submit and we yield our lives to him, and we say, I want to be everything that you called me to. I know you have a purpose and a plan for me, Jeremiah 29:11. And so I trust that you're going to order my steps in the way it should go. But sometimes we think of time in a way that God does not. God's eternal. And eternal means that he does not think of the time of day and space the same way we do, because we measure our lives in time. He does not. It's eternal, which means forever, which means there's no concept of time in the way we think about it. So when we want something to happen, the Lord is like, look, a thousand years is a day, and a day is 1,000 years. So understand that even though we may want it to happen now, he sees the whole picture of our life all at once at the same time. Whereas we only see moment by moment. And so because of that, I'll say it the way that I tell my daughters, like, you understand that I'm thinking 5 years ahead of your development where you are now. So the things that I tell you to do is because I have 5 years in mind, not right now in mind. And sometimes in our development in life, we think of right now, and we're not thinking of 5 years because we don't have that concept. We don't know what the future is going to hold. Yeah. And so it takes it takes a little bit for us to trust the Lord in the sense of ordering our footsteps and what we have to walk through. And sometimes that's difficult because we don't really understand what's around the corner. And for me, I did not know where we're going to be right now. But also, just because the Lord told me we would be here right now does not mean I necessarily want to walk through everything it was required in order for me to be here. And so that was a struggle for me, because there's a lot of times, obedience is better than sacrifice. And so I very much could have sacrificed what he said I could have had, or I could have chose to be obedient. I chose to be obedient, and I'm thankful for that. And so there was many times where I would be in a place where hardship would come. We have a difficult conversation, or a situation comes up and I don't necessarily want to deal with it, or something I disagree with, or whatever the case may be. And not just talking about arguments, but just situations that I'm struggling to think of, like specific situations.
I know, I'm like, what is one?
But let's say, I know of one.
I was going to mention one too, but go ahead.
No, which one?
No. Go ahead.
Okay. So her birthday, the week of her birthday, the April of that same year, we were coming to a place where we were in a dating relationship. And at the time, it was shaky. The relationship was shaky. She kind of felt the struggles that she had, and I was having the struggles that I had in regards to where faith is concerned. Is this the relationship I should have? Should we be in this relationship? So on and so forth. And I was more of the place why is this not progressing? Do I need to go somewhere else? It's been 6 years or whatever at the time. I'm just at the end of the rope, on and on and on. And that Wednesday, I believe, now she didn't know it, but me and her sister at the time was putting together a surprise party on her birthday, a cruise and everything. And I'm like, and so we kind of break apart that Wednesday, or was it Sunday or Wednesday? I think it was Wednesday. We break apart that Wednesday, not gonna deal with each other. And I'm like, I'm good. I'm not going to a birthday. I ain't putting no money down. I'm not doing none of that nonsense. And so I'm talking to the day before her birthday, I'm talking to my friend Boss. And he's like, don't even think about it in regards to a relationship. He said, think about it just as your sister in Christ. This is someone who goes to church with you, and she's friends with you. And what would you do then? And I was like, he's like, you ain't got to be all up in her face and all that, but you just still go and support her. And I was like, and I knew he was right, because when when the Spirit of the Lord speaks, even though, see, he don't just speak to us directly, he also speaks through people. And a lot of times for us men, the things that God wants to use to humble us, we want to refuse because we think it makes it look like a punk, make us look like a punk, or whatever the world want to dictate it as. Because at the time I felt like a punk. I felt like this is stupid. Like I'm getting played, you know what I'm saying? Like God ain't looking out for my best interest, so on and so forth. But, and I get to all these little scenarios in a minute. But basically, what happens is, I go to the party. I'm like, I ain't saying nothing to this woman. She better not talk to me. She better not come wish me. I ain't wishing her happy birthday. I'm in the corner. I'm in the cut. My little, in the cut. Just don't come talk to me or nothing. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that had some impression upon you. Is that correct?
A little bit. A
little bit. Okay. So there was a time where my wife went on a cruise.
Why are you...
Wait, I'm not gonna. She went on a cruise, right?
He calls it.
Do not.
No, we're being transparent.
I know that, but that's not appropriate wording.
Well, you said it, and we're being transparent.
I'm gonna say it like this. I didn't like the cruise.
He called it the hoochie cruise.
It was hoochie.
Should I have said that?
I don't know.
Look, we're being transparent. He called it the hoochie cruise. Yeah, I don't know why, but
like the Lord kept me from other women, kept me from other relationships, kept me, and so I was like, okay, so she allowed to go do whatever she wants to, but I got to be over here steady stand. Like I was like, what? Where is that at? I'm like,
steady stand.
She gets to entertain conversations.
I was ministering, okay?
You was ministering when your foot was getting rubbed. All I'm saying is that I was like, she's allowed to entertain, but I gotta sit over here and be steady stand. I was like, that's not cool, guy. Like, come on, are you serious? I'm not cool with that. Like, there's other, conversations and relationships I could have entertained. Not that I necessarily wanted to, but for 7 years, being in a place where I'm like, man, I don't really want to go into because like I said earlier, like, there's no point. If the guy said this is where it's at, and I go and say, oh, I'm going to date this person, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, like, there's no point. Because eventually you're going to come back here, so why waste your time there? Especially because what would come out of it? Right? I wasn't going to marry the person, or I could be in a long time, entertain the person, but I could have women that were friends, because I did have women that were friends that I could go to dinner with, or have lunch with, or have conversation, or whatever. And so, again, because that happened, like she got off after the cruise, she came home and she got sick, right? She comes home, not my home, but she comes home to Seattle. She's sick. And I'm like, well, and at that point I was just like, I'm good. Like, you can go do your thing. If you want to have other entertainment with other men, cool. You want to have other relationships. And not to say that she was like being loose, you know what I'm saying? Like, she wasn't out there being, what's they call it? What's the old days, what they call it? Being fast. Hot and fast.
I was not being hot.
She was not doing all that.
No.
But there were certain conversations and stuff she entertained, and I was just like, I mean, it's cool, but like, I felt like the Lord was saying, you have to be here, be steady stand, and she gets to do that. At least that's how I felt. And so I'll explain more about it. But basically, she got sick, and the Lord's like, you need to go over there. You need to help take care of her. And I'm like,
I was super sick.
I mean,
I got a spinal tap.
Like, really, really, it was bad. And so I was like,
yeah,
I'm not with that. I'm good.